Hi, Ted here from Red Fox Safety Products. We get a lot of phone calls from people asking us why the different models, why the different features, how do you wire them, how does this thing all work? So we're going to take a short video today and we're going to explain a few things. From the model 100 through model 300, you get an enclosure just like this. And on the bottom of the enclosure is a wire harness, and I'll explain it to you. You have power, which is 12 volt, and you have a ground wire. And then you have a white wire that attaches to a special solenoid that we have. I'll explain that later. Then we have a little red wire. Most of the time this little red wire is not used, but sometimes it is for certain applications. And when you transmit and you shut off your piece of equipment, inside's got a relay on the circuit board, and it puts power to this red wire, and you can attach it to a small warning light or something, and to announce that there's something wrong, and then it'll warn people. So let me explain a little bit about this special solenoid that we have, that we use with the model 100 through the model 300. The white wire that I just spoke about goes to this terminal right here. And when the unit sends power to here, it activates it as solenoid. Granted, it's got to be grounded. And when you transmit, the circuit board inside takes power away from this terminal, and this solenoid shuts off. And by shutting off, you can have power in and power out going to a coil on a gas engine, or going to a solenoid on an injector pump on a diesel engine. And when they lose power on the gas engine, it shuts off, and then on the diesel engine, doing that little solenoid shuts off in the injector pump, shuts off fuel to the engine, and the engine shuts off. Now what's special about this solenoid, it's got two terminals in the front here. And this is used in a grounding circuit. There are some applications where an engine shuts off through a grounding circuit. For example, a small Honda or Briggs engine that may be a 10-12 horse powering some piece of equipment, it goes through a grounding circuit to shut the engine off. And there's some applications in some larger equipment. For example, on a Caterpillar genset, they use a grounding circuit to shut off their big diesel engines. So this is a very versatile piece of equipment to have that we use. Another application is we have a special wire harness that you can use on the model 100 through the model 300. That's attached to this solenoid that we were just talking about. And what this does, if you have a newer engine that's in a new piece of equipment, most generally is controlled by a computer. And the only way for us to shut that engine off is we have to remove power from the computer circuit. And what we do is we go into the fuse panel and we find the fuse that controls that computer circuit. And it's normally 5, 10, 20, sometimes as high as a 30 amp, especially in the Caterpillar applications, that controls that circuit. So if we remove power, or for example, you just pull out the fuse of that computer circuit, it'll shut the engine off. So we have a special harness here that we can plug into that slot in the fuse panel. And then what we do is we have a fuse holder, an inline fuse holder right here, and we take the fuse that we took out of the fuse panel and we put back in this little fuse holder, and it completes the circuit and also protects the circuit just like it was before. Now people ask us, well, I've got a special fuse, how do I make this work? Well, let me explain. this little adapter can come off of this harness. And we've got 4 different types of adapters. This is called a jumbo, which isn't used a lot anymore. This is called a ATO, which is pretty standard in the stuff that's in the 80s and 90s up to the 2000s. But then as we get 2000 up to 2020, everybody's using the mini. So these 2 adapters will probably take care of 90% of the applications. And then this little new one now is called the little micro, and it's starting to be used now too. So what we can do is we can adapt any one of these to this harness, and we can use our unit to shut off the piece of equipment. Now, the Model 100 through the Model 300 comes with a transmitter. You press the transmitter, and when the piece of equipment is operating, it will take and shut it off. Now, this little transmitter talks to this receiver when it's on. Now, when it's off, it's obviously, it won't talk to it. But, so it's talking to it all the time. And it's monitoring the battery condition in this transmitter. And if for some reason this battery would happen to get weak or low, this little yellow LED on top of this receiver, it will light, meaning that this transmitter battery is low and needs to be changed. But we tell everybody, change the battery once a year, and this will probably never ever come on. So how this works is when you turn on your piece of equipment through the harness, this little green light will light, meaning it's ready to go. And when you transmit, push the little transmitter button, this little LED will go off and the red LED will blink, meaning that your piece of equipment has shut off. And so the only way to get this operational again is you have to press this little reset button on top, and then it'll reset the circuit board internally, and you're ready to go again. Now on the Model 100 and Model 200, you don't have to push this reset button. You can turn off the key and wait 4 or 5 seconds, turn the key back on. It's the same thing as pressing this reset button. Now in the Model 225, it's a different situation. It has a completely different circuit board inside. When you transmit, push the little transmitter button, and it goes, the green shuts off and the red turns on. You can turn the key off, wait 5 seconds, turn the key back on. This little red LED will still blink. You have to push the reset button. And there are certain applications where people want additional security. They don't want this to be able to turn the key off and turn it back on and be able to operate again. They want this shut off until somebody physically pushes this button. So that's the special feature on the 225. Now, range and application, 1,000, 1,200 feet to line of sight is what this transmitter will do to this receiver as far as range. It will work well. This receiver is a NEMA 4 enclosure, meaning it can be outside. You can have some light drizzle on it. NEMA 4 means you can't submerge this in water. It's just to keep the moisture off. It's nice if it has a little hood or something over to kind of protect it from the elements. Now the Model 200, which is here, and the Model 250. Now the only difference between those is with the Model 200, you can have 4 of these transmitters. It will talk to this receiver. With the Model 250, you can have up to 16 transmitters talking to this receiver. Some applications, people want a lot of transmitters. Some applications, all they want is 1 or 2. So that is the difference between those. Now on the Model 225, it is 4 transmitters. On the Model 275, you can have up to 16 transmitters. Okay, now we will discuss the Model 350 and the Model 375. Now this Model 350, this is a long box. It's got special circuit boards inside there with special relays. And we sell a 350 just like this that's in the small enclosure. And I'll explain the differences here. On this large enclosure, there are 2 big relays down in the bottom. There are certain applications where the circuitry to shut off the engine is quite large, and the relays inside here are not large enough, and we can't put a larger one in the circuit board because it won't fit into this enclosure. So that's why we have a longer box. This has got a magnetic base on the back. You can stick this into a cab of a piece of equipment. For example, on the ropes frame, that's a rollover protection frame. You can stick this magnet right on there. You can't pull it off. I mean, it's stuck on there good. Now it's got a special 2 harnesses. On this one, it's got a cigarette plug that plugs into a receptacle. Now this is 12 volt only, and this is what powers our unit. Now this has a harness that's just like this other harness that I was talking to you about. That's on the Model 100 through the Model 300. But it's built right into the bottom of the enclosure. It's not something external. And so this can be plugged into the fuse panel to control the computerized circuit to shut off the engine. We have 2 models of this, and the 350 is good for 4 transmitters, and they talk to each other. And on the 375, we can put a 16 circuit receiver inside, so you can have up to 16 transmitters. Well, I think this pretty much includes how things work and how it's wired in. And if you have any more questions, you can give us a call or send us an email. And I want to thank you for watching, and just remember, if you need a shutter down, think of Red Fox.